Danny Fleming of the MA Properties Online team. We're here for another episode of Coffee with MA Properties Online. Let me try that again. Coffee with MA Properties Online. We're here with Ted Silva of Quicksilver Title, and he's going to answer a couple of questions for us. And thank you for being here, Ted.
My pleasure, Danny. Thanks for having me here today. I appreciate this. Thank you.
We get this question all the time. What's the difference between a closing attorney and a buyer's attorney? And do people need both?
That's a great question. I get that quite a few times myself. So a closing attorney does one thing. They represent the bank. That's it. The bank asks them to check the title. They check the title. They make sure everything's paid, taxes, water, and they go to the closing, Danny, and their only job is to represent the bank.
Yep.
So basically show up, collect the checks, give the checks, record everything properly, give everything back to the bank, and they're done.
Yeah.
That's all a closing attorney does. Yeah. A buyer's attorney will represent the buyer.
Yep.
They will make sure that from the beginning, from the offer stage, they will go to the next stage, which is called a purchase and sales agreement. Yeah. They'll represent the buyer with the actual contract itself, negotiating with the seller. They might do a home inspection and have issues from the home inspection, things that need repaired. Well, you can't just tell the seller verbally, I want all this fixed by closing table. Great, I'll see you there. In this state, actually I believe it's every state, it has to be in writing. If it's not in writing, it means nothing. With real estate, a judge will say, sorry, if it's not in writing, we can't enforce it. So if you do a walkthrough and you find issues with a home, it could be anything. Yeah. If we put it in writing and both parties sign it, we can enforce it. So the buyer's going to represent the buyer with home inspections. They're going to make sure that when they go for the mortgage, yes, the mortgage broker will make sure they get approved, okay? Yep. The buyer's attorney's job, my job, and represent buyers, is to make sure that that buyer's deposit is protected, because the buyer gives a deposit at the offer stage. Yep. They give another deposit, typically 5% at the P&S stage, all right? Now, that's 5% of the money. Let's say it's $1 million property. That's $50,000 they're giving over to the selling side, whether it's a seller's lawyer or the seller's realtor. It's $50,000 out of their checking account to the other side. And check gets cashed. Trust me. They cash that check. All right. If you're getting a mortgage on a property, we want to make sure that that's protected. So for some reason you don't get that mortgage, you may lose your job. All right. We don't know what could happen, but something could happen in the meantime. Yeah. If you don't get the mortgage, Danny, I want to make sure that the buyer gets their money back. Yep. So we protect them. So a lot of times people will say, do I need both? Absolutely. You need both. You need someone for the bank. If you're going to borrow the money, you want someone to protect you. But here's the beauty about the state of Massachusetts. In this state, the judges came down and said one lawyer can do both. So you get the same lawyer represent the bank and represent you as the buyer and do the same exact thing. In Quicksilver, Danny, we don't charge extra for that. So the bank will pay us the fee to represent them, and we won't charge anything extra to any buyer to represent them as well. So it's a one-stop shop.
That's brilliant. That's a good explanation of the difference, because we get asked that all the time. And that's a fantastic answer, because that really clarified the two roles of the attorneys in that. So,
and Dan, if you only have a bank attorney, closing attorney, and not your own personal attorney, or if you don't have that lawyer do both for you, buyer and bank, if you come closing time, let's say you get all the way to closing table, and an issue pops up at the walkthrough. Something happens at the walkthrough where when the seller moved out, they broke a few things along the way. Unintentional, but it has happened. You and I have both seen it. Absolutely, it does happen. Who's to protect you? All right? So what you can do up front is you can ask the bank, if they're going to say, we have a lawyer for you, will that lawyer represent me as well? And will they charge me extra as a part of the fee? You can ask that question. I recommend asking that question up front.
Yeah. And then if there is an issue at walkthrough, the buyer's attorney component, if you like, is going to represent the buyer in addressing those issues.
100%.
Whereas if it's just a closing attorney, they're not interested.
I've been on the selling side as a seller's lawyer, and I've seen the buyer without a lawyer, only using the bank lawyer. And I've seen the bank lawyer say, sorry, I'm just the bank lawyer.
Yeah, I've seen that many times too. It's horrifying.
Horrifying. And I think to myself, Danny, like, my firm, and I'm not trying to say I'm better than at all, but my firm, like, we would never say we do both.
Yeah.
So if we take on the bank work and that buyer wants to work with us, we represent them as well. No extra charge. So we'll never put our hands up at closing. Sorry, we're the bank attorney. Yeah. We'll actually sit down and stall the closing until the issue gets resolved.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's really good information, because that's so important to buyers and buyers out there. I mean, the sellers don't really care at this point in time about the buyers and closing attorney, but no, the importance of having one firm represent both sides of that is just absolutely important.
And it's great in this state how you can have one lawyer do both, which saves people money. Yeah. You're not going to spend money on, I have a bank lawyer, I have a buyer lawyer, I'm paying double. Just pay one and you get both in this state.
That's brilliant. Yep. So thank you, Ted.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. That concludes another episode of Coffee with MA Properties Online. And our guest today was Ted Silva of Quicksilver Title, and his details are going to follow just now. So thank you again, Ted.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hi there, it's Marcus Collins here. Thanks for watching this episode of Coffee with MA Properties Online on YouTube. If you want to stay up to date with future episodes, click subscribe just below me or click on this list to see lots of other great videos. Thanks for watching.